Hello and welcome to my channel, In Search of Wonder. My name is Anne, and today I want to talk about my reading goals for 2025. So, I have warmed over coffee in this cup. Isn't that so romantic? That's where we are right now. And I have dust or something on my sleeve. We're just in great shape. I have some kind of cough bug that's going around. It's really starting to annoy me significantly, but let's talk about much more pleasant things. Let's talk about what I plan to read in 2025. To preface my discussion on this, I just want to say I feel like it's a common conversation among booktube channels about the balance between mood reading and reading for pleasure and reading for a challenge or reading for goals and feeling driven to read something for something other than the pure pleasure of reading. And I like to think that I am able most of the time to strike a pretty good balance between those two kind of warring ideas, because I do think it's important to enjoy what you are reading. It is a hobby, a pastime. It should be enjoyable. And I also think that it is very important to read deeply, and not just quickly and shallowly, to really be able to immerse in a book and fully enjoy it in all of its richness, and not just speed through it for the sake of a challenge of some kind. At the same time, for myself, if I don't have goals, if I don't have challenges that push me outside of my comfort zone, I would probably, I would lack direction in my reading. Mood reading, I would just read a lot of things that are fun in the moment, but shallow, quick books and easy to read, because if left to my own devices, that's probably what I would choose a lot of the time. Life is crazy. We're busy. I'm not always in the mood to pick up something big and deep, like, let's say, Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, even though it is a wonderfully rich book that I enjoy very much and consider one of my favorite books of all time. I might not pick up a book like that without having some sort of outer motivation for me to pick it up. That's not entirely true, because I have definitely gone through plenty of years in my adult life where I look back and I read, and as a teenager, where I read really quality books without having anybody make me read them and not having any sort of outer motivation. But I definitely leaned towards easier reads, fun reads, quick reads, mood reads, what I consider mood reads. So I like to have a balance. I like to challenge myself to read things that make me think. I like to challenge myself to read books that require more from me as the reader in order to understand them and in order to appreciate them. And I like to read books that the author brings more to it than, just a quick formulaic novel. I like that. So I like to be challenged to read those, to make myself choose them. But I also have to have the margin to be able to read the fun books, the easy reads, the brain candy, as my mom calls it on occasion. And it's important to have that balance. And it is important that I be enjoying it at one level or another. Sometimes the enjoyment is merely intellectual and it's not an emotional investment in the book, but I can admire what the author's doing. That's fine. But as long as I'm enjoying it, as long as the book is enriching me in some way, then it's worth it. I have gotten better over the years as an adult in discontinuing books or DNFing books that are not giving me enjoyment on any level, including classics, but that one is a lot harder for me. So that one takes a lot more effort to do. but I am wanting to continue to find this balance and walk this line in 2025 of reading richly and enjoying what I am reading. So that's kind of where I'm coming from in my plans, and that's kind of been my framework for the last 5 to 6 years or more of my reading life. I discovered reading challenges, I don't know, it was maybe 2017, 2018, something like that. And I started doing, back then there were not as many as there are nowadays. And I wasn't on BookTube at that point. This was in like blogs and other writers that I followed, or other entities, magazines, whatever, that had different reading challenges. And so that was a really great way for me to expand my horizons, to challenge me to read the more involving books, but also gave me a fun way to do it. So made it seem not like a chore or a drudgery or an assignment. And also I was able to balance that with fun reading and reading that was just pure pleasure and not necessarily for any kind of enrichment of any kind, even if it was enriching in the end in some way. So all of that is kind of a very lengthy explanation for the fact that I don't necessarily make a lot of reading goals for myself. I never have, and I don't foresee that I ever will. The primary goal is I give myself a number goal every year, but it's based on what I do anyway. And it's not like it's something that is difficult to achieve. And that is around 100 books a year. That's roughly 2 a week. And that is pretty normal for me. There have been years when I didn't quite make it because I did not read as much for whatever reason. So that happens. And that's fine. For me, it's not like I will be upset with myself if I don't make it to 100, whatever. So I set that goal, but it's not really anything other than something that I do anyway. So it's not something that's pressuring me. I do have an additional goal that I kind of started halfway through 2024, and I'm going to be more definitive and intentional about this in 2025. And that is to read 50% of the books that I read from my shelf, because I have a lot of unread books and I just want to read them. They're on my shelf because I want to read them. I don't want to get rid of them because I haven't read them yet and I don't know if I like them or not. But I don't know if I like them or not until I actually read them or try to read them. So my goal is to read at least 50% of my books on my shelf. So that is the only other hard and fast goal that I have. I am not making myself a list of 25 books that I want to read next year. One thing I have learned about myself is that I am strongly resistant to someone else picking my books and telling me what to read, even if that someone else is myself, which doesn't really make sense. But if I make a list now that says you need to read these books in 2025, which I kind of did in 2024 and utterly failed at, there's something in me that resists that and is like, no, I'm not going to do what you told me to do because I'm the boss of me. Okay. So my inner 2-year-old gets in the way of that. So I've learned I cannot do any kind of reading challenge that is a specific list of books. I cannot do book clubs. I've learned that. I've tried a few times as an adult, and every time I've gotten really bad at it. So, however, what does really work for me is reading challenges that just have a monthly prompt. And I have really enjoyed those. As I said, they force me to branch out of my comfort zone and read something I may not read otherwise, but they also allow a lot of room to read what you do want to read. At the same time, if I do too many challenges, that's overwhelming, and I want to be able to commit to them and complete them. So the past couple of years, I have completed all of the reading challenges that I have joined. So I want to continue with that and be successful with that. And if I do any more than 3, that doesn't happen. So much for my reading goals for the year. To sum up, I want to read 50% of the books from my shelf, and I want to read about 100 books. As for the reading challenges, 3 is a good number, so I will choose 3. I created a playlist. I shared it on the community tab, but I will share it also here in the description box of this video. I have collected links to all of the announcement videos for 2025 year-long reading challenges that I personally am aware of and or interested in. A couple of them other people have pointed out to me. So if you know of one that is not in that playlist, let me know and I'll add it. And if that helps with your 2025 reading, or if you want to jump in on any of those, that would be amazing. The 3 that I am personally doing are, of course, my own Reading the Classics Challenge, which I designed particularly for myself. And a lot of people are jumping in with me, and I'm so excited about that. So I'm definitely doing the Reading the Classics Challenge. I want to do a challenge every year that prompts me to read classic literature, because that's important to me. And I like doing a challenge because it gives me a fun way to do that. And also gives me some direction rather than just randomly choosing a classic off my shelf or the like, whatever. So I'm doing that one. I'm also doing Chantel's Read Your Shelf Challenge because I love this idea of reading from your shelf, and this prompts me to do that. And the one that she has this year, I love it's how open-ended it is and gives you a lot of leeway in terms of choosing your books and a lot of flexibility. So that's fantastic. So I'm also going to be doing that one. I had so much trouble choosing my third one because there were so many different challenges that sounded so fun, and I kind of wanted to do all of them, but I knew that that would be too overwhelming and I couldn't do that. So in the end, I chose to go with Jeanette's Christian Fiction Reading Challenge because for a lot of reasons, I chose it over some of the other ones that I was very interested in. But the main thing is I do enjoy reading Christian fiction, but I have not read as much of it in the past year or so, or 2 maybe. And it will be a nice balance to the Classics Challenge because it's a little bit easier to do. The Christian fiction reads, by and large, for the most part, are going to be easier reads than classic novels. So it will be more of a fun challenge than something that's, like work, because I don't want my reading to become work. So I am really looking forward to doing those 3 challenges this coming year. Other than that, I don't have any specific goals or things that I'm working on, but someone had asked me about my journal, my reading journal. So I started this one last year. I have kept a reading journal for the past, it's been a while, 5-6 years or so. But initially it was just like a notebook, and I literally only kept track of like the name of the book and the author and my brief thoughts about it. And then I started adding in there like the reading challenges that I was doing. And then I started to be a little more artistic about it, but it was still pretty basic. And then this past year, I just decided that I really wanted to incorporate more of some journaling really into not just like basic facts. I wanted it to be a fun experience as part of the reading experience. So I made a journal. Someone gave me this book for Christmas or for my birthday or something that it's based on Pride and Prejudice. And it has a quote from the opening sentence of Pride and Prejudice in there. And then there are illustrations. Oh, look at that. Really pretty end papers. And then there are some illustrations throughout the book with quotes. So it's a really cool book, and it's perfect to use for reading journaling. So that's what I've been using this year. And I just want to quickly show you the spreads that I have made for this coming year. I started it last year, and there are a lot of spreads in here already that I purposely designed to be kind of perpetual until the goals are accomplished. So that's the other thing. Like, I don't make myself a goal like, okay, I'm going to read, like I have this page, all the Austen that I want to read. I have completed this one, but I didn't make myself a goal like do this in 2025. It's just like eventual. These are Christian authors that I want to read and other authors that I want to read. And you can see I knocked 2 off that list and 1 off this list last year. It's not like it has to be done this year. So there are quite a few in this book, perpetual challenges, if you will, or goals that I have that will be filled eventually. The one I'm working on most seriously right now is all the Bronte. I am collecting a lot of the things that I have left to read there, but I haven't quite read them yet. I mean, I'm pretty close. So that's the one I'm going to finish up. And then this is classic authors that I read. So I did read 3 of them last year. I didn't get to Anthony Trollope, but I'm hoping 2025 is the year. And then Kurt Vonnegut I haven't read yet either. which I guess is more like literary than classic per se. I don't really even know like where you would put him, but I just put him in that list. So anyway, I also used this, I use this to keep track of the readathons that I joined in. I like it when they have graphics that you can print because that makes it easier as far as putting them in my journal. So that's how I use my reading journal. This past year, I had a spread for each month where I put a book cover and a little description and my 5-star rating of the book. This year, I'm actually going to do something different. So this year, someone gave me, a friend of mine, gave me this book, my book journal, a reading diary for bibliophiles. And I didn't use it last year because I already was putting them in this journal. But I don't have enough room left in this journal to do a whole spread for each month like I did before. So I added some spreads that are year-long things that I'm going to be working on. And then there are some pages left that I can put in readathons, monthly readathons as the year goes on. Probably not even enough for them. I'm going to have to start another book at some point next year. So I decided I would use this one to actually log the books that I'm reading. So this is for readathons, reading challenges, and goals. This is for the actual books that I'm reading. And it has pages in the front where I can just list the books. And then it has space for like, how many? 100? Yeah. Has space for 100 books, and it has all this. I like the information that you put in there: the start date, finish date, author, publisher, genre, where you got it from, the main character, subject, and your review and thoughts. And then it has some place where you can rate the quality of writing, the strength of characters, and the plot. So that's very basic. In the back, it has some challenges, which I think that I could totally do these, like, not purposely, but as I'm reading books, they would fit these different challenges. And there are 24 different ones. And then there are lists. 10 books I would bring to a desert island, 10 favorite books I have reread, that sort of thing, which I actually thought when I saw those would make some great videos. 10 most romantic books I have read, 10 most suspenseful books I have read. So this is just a fun little reading guide. And then it has wish list of books to read. So as I hear books that I want to read, I can add them to there. I've never kept a physical list of books that I want to read. I've always just used Goodreads for that, but that I'm going to actually log my reading in this year. But this contains my goals and the reading challenges and readathons. So let's look at that for this coming year. First of all, I have my book tracker page. So that's just a spread across 2 pages, and I will color off those books as I finish them. This past year, I used a different color for each month, so I could easily see I read this many in January, and I did them all like sequentially, and I like that. So I will probably do the same thing again this year. And then I just made a page for 20 non-fiction reads in 2025. Actually, no, that's not 20 nonfiction reads. It's 20-25 split. And it's there may be 20 dots on there. That is not a goal. That's just how I made the list. However many nonfiction I read, as long as it's a minimum of 12, I'll be happy. So I guess you could say I have a goal to read 12 nonfiction, but it's kind of like always my goal to read at least 1 nonfiction a month. Then I have a place to put my 5-star reads because I have almost filled up 2 5-star reads pages for 2024. I'm definitely going to need another one. So I went ahead and added a 5-star read page. So every time I read a 5-star book, it goes on that. And then I did make a list of books that I would like to reread again, ideally this year, but I do have 1 or 2 that I made for my list last year that I still need to read. So Age of Innocence, and I forgot another book or 2. So I added some rereads to keep me going forward with rereading. Ones that I've been thinking lately, I would really like to read that. First of all, Anne of Ingleside, Rainbow Valley, and Rilla of Ingleside are the remaining books in the Anne series that I want to reread, and I haven't read them yet. So I would like to get to them. I would like to get to all 3 of them next year, but again, there's not a deadline on these goals. And then Shirley by Charlotte Bronte, I read so many years ago, more than 20 years ago, and I don't remember anything about it except that I did enjoy it. And Miriam, I believe, gave me a copy of that book for my birthday, I think, last year, or earlier this year. So I definitely want to read that one. And then Jack and Jill was my favorite Louisa May Alcott book from when I was younger. So I would like to reread it and see if it still is a favorite of mine. The Women in White, so many people were talking about that this Victober, and I realized that I had read it, but I didn't remember hardly anything about it. So again, time for me to reread. And then Phantom of the Opera. I do remember quite a bit about Phantom of the Opera, but I want to reread it. And then I have, and then I have space for one more book as I think of something else to add to the list. And then I put my 50 by 50 here as a 2-page spread. Now this is going to take me until I'm 50, more than likely, or close to it. So, because I've only read one so far, and that's Dracula. So I'm hoping to tackle at least 2 of them in January, but I really need to read at least 10 a year. Well, 10 a year for the next 5 years. But if I read more than 10 a year, then that's finishing before I turn 50. So I'd really love to read one a month until they're done. So that would be fantastic, but we'll see what happens if I get to this. Some of them are pretty big and chunky, so some of them are going to take longer than that, but I would at least to always have one of these in progress starting in January of 2025. So you can go watch my whole 50 by 50 video to find all the titles that are on there. The next 2 that are coming up for me are Pamela by Samuel Richardson and Gilead by Marilyn Robinson. And then I have this to go with my reading 50% books on my shelf. So this is from my shelf. And my idea is I have 10 boxes here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a tally mark for each book that I read during the year that is from my shelf. If my goal overall is to read 100, then I should have 50 tally marks in here by the end of the year, at least. So once I get a set of 5 tally marks, then I'll go to the next box. So that will help me stay motivated to read from my shelf this year. And then I put my readathons, my reading challenges for the whole year. This is mine, my Reading the Classics challenge. And I have the prompt for the book, and then I have the scavenger hunt, which I'm already, I feel like, sorry, I had a coughing fit. I feel like already for January I'm gonna fail in that, like, completely. We'll see what happens. And then I just left some space in the center to write what books I end up reading for that. And that took 3 pages. So, and then I have Chantel's Reading Your Shelf Challenge here. And I need to add something. I want to add some more like flower stickers to this page, but not much because I need space to write the titles of the books around here as I read them. The Jane Reads Christian Fiction Reading Challenge 2025. And I cut up her bingo board that she had, and I just kind of randomly, and this really randomly, like I didn't put the months in order because I just felt like doing that. So I just put the books randomly in there, so it'll be fun to fill them in as the year goes on. So that is my reading journal for 2025, what I have planned. Those are my reading goals for the year, such as they are. I have been watching videos where people actually choose books like for a whole challenge, like, you know, they assign a book for each month for challenges that they're going to read, you know, or even like the popular 25 books in 2025 or whatever. And I just can't. I cannot do that. Like the very thought of it just makes my inner 2-year-old stand up. So yeah, that's not happening around here. We're going to read as it comes. I make a monthly TBR. That's about as far as I can plan ahead, other than, you know, occasional like book reading, buddy reading, you know, fitting it in someone else's calendar with something that I know I want to read, but that's the difference. It's something I know that I want to read, and I know I will still want to read it when I get to the point that the buddy read was scheduled. So anyway, I am sorry. I feel like this was fairly rambling. I feel like I am not quite coherent today because I'm not quite in top form, but anyways, hopefully you understood everything I was saying and it made sense and it wasn't too rambly. And let me know in the comments what you think about my goals. Where do you stand on this issue of mood reading versus planning ahead? How much do you challenge yourself in your reading? Or do you just like to read wherever your mood takes you, whatever that is? Do you read just for fun, or do you read for intellectual stimulation or anything like that? Let me know. Weigh in the comments and tell me your goals for next year, and I will see you next time. Bye.